This is a True Crime in Real Time update from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.
Newly released 911 calls have shed light on the final harrowing weeks of Mica Francis Miller's life, painting a chilling portrait of a woman desperately fighting for safety and justice. The calls, spanning from February to April 2024, reveal a pattern of escalating abuse and control allegedly perpetrated by her estranged husband, John Paul Miller, a prominent pastor in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This fresh evidence, along with a recent FBI search of Miller's home, has reignited national attention on Mica's tragic death and the systemic failures that may have contributed to it. On April 27, 2024, Mica's body was discovered in a remote, swampy area of Lumber River State Park in North Carolina. She had traveled to the location earlier that day after purchasing a gun from Dick's pawn shop in Myrtle Beach. Her death was officially ruled a suicide by investigators, but the circumstances surrounding it, including allegations of abuse, harassment, and coercive control, have fueled widespread speculation about the role her estranged husband may have played in her final days. Less than 48 hours before her death, Mica served John Paul Miller with divorce papers. Court filings detail a history of alleged abuse, including physical violence, tracking devices secretly placed on her vehicle, and attempts to control her finances and identity. These allegations are echoed in the 14 calls Mica placed to law enforcement between February 7th and April 15th, each one a plea for help. That went largely unanswered. One of the most haunting calls came on February 15th when Mica contacted Horry County dispatchers to report that her husband was in a manic state and posed a danger to her and others. She described John Paul's erratic behavior and expressed fear that he might use guns purchased in her name to commit violence. Despite her detailed account, no immediate action was taken against him. Mica's struggles with the legal system began earlier that month when John Paul initiated an involuntary mental health commitment against her, claiming she suffered from bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. While Mica was hospitalized, she alleged that John Paul stole her car, laptop, and other belongings. When she tried to report the theft to police, she was told it was a civil matter because the items were considered marital property. This lack of intervention only emboldened her estranged husband, according to friends and family. The evidence of abuse mounted as the weeks went on. In March, Mica reported finding multiple tracking devices on her vehicles, leading her to believe she was being monitored. One device was discovered the day before a critical court hearing, raising suspicions that John Paul was trying to intimidate her or interfere with her legal proceedings. Surveillance footage from the courthouse failed to identify who placed the device, leaving Mica without proof, but with deepening fear. By April 15th, Mica made her final call to police about a tracking device, marking the end of her documented pleas for help. 12 days later, she was dead. In the immediate aftermath of her death, John Paul Miller's behavior raised further questions. On April 28th, less than 12 hours after being notified of Mica's passing, he delivered a sermon at his church, Solid Rock, where he instructed congregants not to discuss her death. Days later, he attempted to gain access to the apartment where Mica had been staying, prompting a 911 call from her roommate, who reported a suspected burglary. Police turned him away, but his actions continued to draw scrutiny. The FBI's recent search of John Paul's Horry County home has added a new layer of intrigue to the case. While the agency has not disclosed the specific focus of its investigation, many speculate it could be tied to either Mica's death or alleged financial improprieties involving Solid Rock Church and its affiliated organizations. The church has since shuttered, but questions about its operations and leadership remain unanswered. One particularly disturbing detail from the newly released reports involves an alleged strangulation incident. According to a dispatch record, Mica told police that John Paul had choked her weeks before her death. Advocates for domestic violence victims point to this incident as a glaring example of the systemic failures that left Mica vulnerable. South Carolina, notably, is the only state in the country without a standalone law addressing strangulation as a criminal offense, a legislative gap that experts say increases the risk of fatal violence in abusive relationships. The calls for accountability are growing louder. Lawmakers have introduced a bill that would classify strangulation as a standalone crime, a move inspired in part by cases like Mica's. Advocates hope the legislation will prevent future tragedies by giving law enforcement stronger tools to intervene in domestic violence situations. As the investigation into Mica's death continues, her story has become a rallying cry for change. It is a sobering reminder of the dangers faced by victims of coercive control and the urgent need for systemic reform. For now, the questions linger. Could more have been done to protect Mica, and will the truth about her death ever fully come to light? The nation watches as the pieces of this puzzle slowly come together, each revelation a stark indictment of the failures that led to Mica's untimely death. The hope is that her legacy will inspire action, ensuring that her cries for help were not in vain.
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
Where hidden killers roam, unnoticed, in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic, very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Bruschi as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point of narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.